Welcome, and thank you for being here. If you're coming across my video for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell. Now let me give you a short introduction to today's story, featuring 3 brave kids who wanted their mom to be happy. Dear future father. That's how the first letter began. Not from a woman, not from a matchmaker, but from 3 children who had been watching their mother for years. The way she smiled for the world, but cried quietly at night when she thought no one was listening. They knew she was strong. They knew she loved them, but they also knew she was lonely. So they made a decision no one asked them to make. They chose a man who hadn't smiled in years, a man who had known loss, just like their mother, who carried scars he never spoke about, a man who wore silence like a second skin. And without telling either of them, they started writing letters, testing him, watching him, guiding him step by step closer to their mother's heart. And just when things finally began to feel right, everything fell apart. One mistake, one moment of anger, and he pushed her away over something that meant more to him than she understood. The next day, 3 children walked into his office and asked a question that shattered him completely.
What did you do to our mommy?
He didn't expect forgiveness. He didn't think he deserved another chance, but they gave him one anyway. Now everything rests on what he does next. Will the triplets succeed in bringing them together, or will their plan fall apart completely? All. Stay with me till the end. Let's unravel this love story together. Adwoa asantewa. Boateng's alarm went off at 5:17 in the morning, but she was already awake. She had been lying there with her eyes open for about 17 minutes, watching the gray light creep through her curtains like it did every Thursday morning. She turned off the alarm before it could beep a second time. The apartment was quiet. Seoul was still sleeping outside her windows. All those buildings and streets and people who didn't know her real name, who only knew her face from magazines and billboards. She sat up slowly, put her feet on the cold floor, and looked at the photo on her dresser. It was her wedding day. She was wearing white, laughing at something Kwame had just whispered in her ear. His arm was around her waist. They looked so young. They looked like people who thought they had forever. That was 8 years ago. Adwoa touched the frame with 2 fingers, just for a second, then stood up and walked to her closet. She pulled on her running clothes, the black ones that didn't show sweat, and tied her shoes sitting on the edge of her bed. Through the wall, she could hear one of the triplets snoring softly. Probably Kofi. He always snored when he fell asleep reading. She opened their bedroom door as quietly as she could. All 3 of them were in there, even though the apartment had 4 bedrooms and they could each have their own space. They chose to stay together. 3 beds pushed close like a little village. Kofi was asleep with his math book open on his chest, his glasses still on his face, crooked. Adwoa walked over and gently took the glasses off, folded them, put them on his nightstand. She closed the book and set it on the floor. Akosua had fallen asleep while writing again. There was a pen still in her hand, a notebook under her cheek. Adwoa carefully pulled the pen away and closed the notebook. Akosua made a small sound but didn't wake up. Abena was the only one sleeping normally, but she had positioned herself right between her brother and sister. One arm stretched out toward each of them, like she was protecting them even while dreaming. Adwoa pulled the blanket up over all 3 of them, tucking it around their shoulders. She stood there for a moment, just watching them breathe. 9 years old, growing so fast, speaking 6 languages, getting awards at school, making her laugh when she felt like crying. She whispered in Uwe, so quiet it was almost just breath. Your father would be so proud of you. Then she caught her own reflection in the window. 30 years old, tired, still here, still standing. The whole world knew her face, knew her walk, knew the way she looked in expensive clothes under bright lights. But nobody knew about these mornings, about the way she stood in her children's doorway and felt grateful and heartbroken at the same time. She left the apartment at 5:45 exactly. Thursday was her only morning to run alone, before the weekend chaos, before the calls and fittings and meetings. She needed this, needed the river, needed the path, needed to move her body until her brain got quiet. The security guard in the lobby nodded at her. "Morning, Ms. Boateng." "Good morning, Mr. Kim." Outside, Seoul was waking up. The sky was getting lighter, turning that pale purple color that only lasted about 10 minutes before the sun really came up. Adwoa started running, heading toward the Han River, where the path was long and flat and she could think, or not think, whichever she needed more. This morning, she was thinking about Akosha's question from last night. They had been eating dinner, just the four of them at the kitchen table, and out of nowhere Akosha had said, "Mama, why don't we have a daddy who comes to school like Minseo's daddy does?" Adwoa had frozen with her fork halfway to her mouth. Abena had kicked Akosha under the table. Kofi had stared very hard at his rice. Adwoa had put her fork down slowly and said, "You have a daddy, baby. He just can't be here with us." "I know," Akosha said. "I know he's in heaven. But I mean a daddy who's here, who comes to the parent breakfast and helps with the science fair." And what could Adwoa say to that? That she was too tired? That she worked too much? That every man who had ever asked her to dinner seemed to want the woman from the magazines, not the woman who fell asleep on the couch in her old clothes with dried paint on her hands from helping with art projects. She had said, "I know, sweet girl, I know." And Akosha had nodded and gone back to eating, but Adwoa saw the way all three of them looked at each other. That look they did when they were having a whole conversation without talking. It made her nervous. When the triplets started plotting, things happened. Usually loud things. Now, running along the river with the morning air cold in her lungs, Adwoa tried not to think about it. Tried to just be here, in her body, moving. But her brain wouldn't cooperate. It kept showing her images of the triplets at school, watching other kids with both parents, coming home quiet and heavy on those days. She ran faster. Across the city, in a neighborhood where the houses were bigger and quieter, Seo Jin-woo woke up at exactly 5 in the morning from the same dream he always had. Yuna was standing in a field of gold grass, wearing a white dress, holding a baby in her arms. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket. Jin-woo was running toward them, running as fast as he could, but the field kept getting longer. He ran, and Yuna smiled at him, that sad, gentle smile, and no matter how hard he ran, he never got any closer. The baby never cried. Yuna never called his name. She just stood there, getting farther away even though he was running, and then he woke up. Every morning, 7 years, the same dream. He lay there for exactly 30 seconds, waiting for his heartbeat to slow down, then sat up and turned off his alarm before it could ring. He didn't need it. His body knew. 5 o'clock. Time to get up. Time to run. Time to start the routine that kept everything in place. He brushed his teeth for exactly 90 seconds, the way his dentist recommended. He drank a full glass of water. He put on his running clothes, the gray ones, the same ones he wore every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He had blue ones for Tuesday and Thursday, black ones for the weekend. It was easier that way. No decisions. No thinking. He walked down the hallway past 3 closed doors, his office, the guest room, and the nursery. He didn't look at the nursery door. He never looked at it. But his hand slowed down a little when he walked past it, like his body wanted to stop even though his brain said, keep moving. Downstairs, the kitchen was clean and empty. His housekeeper had left everything exactly the way he liked it. Coffee ready to brew, fruit in the bowl, everything in its place. He didn't make coffee. He would have it after the run. Same as always. His phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Min-jun. Your father called again. Says it's urgent this time. Jin-woo looked at the message and did not reply. His father had called 17 times this month. Every time it was urgent. Every time it was about the same thing. The shareholder meetings Jin-woo kept skipping. The business dinners Jin-woo never attended. The fact that Jin-woo was, in his father's exact words, rotting away in that tomb of a house. Jin-woo put his phone in his pocket and walked outside. The air was cold. Spring in Seoul was unpredictable like that. Yesterday had been warm. Today felt like winter again. He liked it. Liked the shock of it. Liked the way it woke him up better than coffee. He started running his usual path. The same path he had run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 7 years. Past the convenience store, down to the river, along the path heading west, under the bridge, back up the hill. Exactly 8 kilometers. Exactly 42 minutes if he kept his usual pace. His mind was already at the office while his body ran. There was the quarterly review meeting, the acquisition deal with the Busan company, the contract that needed 3 more signatures, numbers and deadlines and things he could control. He rounded the bend near the bridge where the path got narrow between the cherry trees that would bloom in a few weeks, and crashed straight into another person running from the opposite direction. The impact knocked them both down. Jin-woo's phone skittered across the pavement. A water bottle rolled into the grass. For 3 seconds there was just the sound of both of them breathing hard, surprised. Jin-woo recovered first. He was already annoyed before he even stood up. His routine was disrupted. There was gravel embedded in his palm. He prided himself on paying attention, and he had not seen this person coming at all. He stood up, brushing dirt off his clothes, and said in Korean, sharp and assuming this person would understand, "You should watch where you're going." The woman on the ground looked up at him. She had dark skin, blue eyes he wasn't expecting, and an expression that went from surprised to unimpressed in about half a second. She stood up without taking his hand when he belatedly offered it. She brushed herself off with the kind of dignity that made him feel like he was the one who had done something wrong. "Maybe you should run somewhere with fewer people," she said in perfect Korean, barely any accent, "if you can't handle sharing the path." Jin-woo blinked. When was the last time someone had talked back to him like that? When was the last time someone had looked at him like he was being ridiculous? 7 years ago. Yuna used to look at him exactly like that when he was being stubborn about something stupid. The thought knocked the irritation right out of him. The woman bent down and picked up something from the ground. His necklace. It must have come loose in the fall. She held it out to him, made very sure their fingers didn't touch when he took it. "You dropped this," she said. Then she turned and walked away. Not jogging, walking. Like he was already forgotten. Like he wasn't worth running away from or toward. Jin-woo stood there holding his necklace, the one Yuna gave him on their first anniversary, the one he had worn every single day for 7 years. He watched this woman walk away and felt something he had not felt since before Yuna died. Off balance, surprised, a little bit curious. He ran the rest of his route, but his pace was wrong. He kept thinking about blue eyes and the way she had said, "Maybe you should run somewhere with fewer people," like he was a child who needed correction. Unbelievable, he muttered to himself. Doesn't even apologize, running in the middle of the path like she owns it. But he couldn't stop seeing those eyes. He got home at 6:32, which was 8 minutes late, which bothered him more than it should. He showered, put on one of his suits, dark gray, perfectly tailored, picked a tie. Came downstairs to find Min-jun sitting in his living room with a tablet and an expression that meant trouble. Min-jun had a key to the house. He had had one for 12 years, since before Yuna, since they were in university together. He used it too often in Jin-woo's opinion, but he had stopped arguing about it. Your father is in the hospital, Min-jun said. No greeting, just information. Jin-woo stopped walking, processed this. Which hospital? Seoul National. He's fine, mostly fine. He's being strategic. Jin-woo closed his eyes for a second. What does that mean? It means, Min-jun said slowly, like he was trying not to laugh, that he realized you would dodge his phone calls forever. So he has deployed what he calls the nuclear option. A hospital bed and many complaints about his heart. Jin-woo sat down on the couch and put his face in his hands. He's not actually sick. Oh, he's sick, just not dying. The doctor said he needs to reduce stress. And apparently watching his only son waste away for 7 years is very stressful. The company is not suffering, Jin-woo said through his hands. The third quarter numbers were up 17%. He's not talking about money. He's talking about you. Jin-woo looked up. Min-jun was watching him with that expression he got sometimes, the one that was half friendship and half concern and entirely annoying. He wants me at the charity auction tomorrow night, Jin-woo said, reading between all the words his father had probably used. Doesn't he? He wants you anywhere that isn't this house. This house is fine. This house, Min-jun said carefully, has not changed in 7 years. You still have Yuna's coffee mug on the counter. Her coat is still on the hook by the door. You walk past the nursery every day and you won't even open the door. Jin-woo stood up. I'm going to the office. The auction is tomorrow at 7. Your father has a table. He put your name on the list. I'll think about it. You mean you'll go because you're afraid if you don't, he'll actually have a heart attack this time? Jin-woo didn't answer, which was answer enough. There was a television on in the kitchen, left running from this morning, probably. The housekeeper must have been watching the news. A voice was saying something about Seoul Fashion Week, designers from around the world, the biggest show in 5 years. Then the voice said, Adwoa Boateng arrived in Seoul this morning for the first time in 8 months. The Togolese supermodel has become one of the most recognized faces in fashion. Jin-woo's head turned without his permission. On the screen was the woman from the park, professional makeup, beautiful clothes, walking through the airport like the cameras weren't even there. That was Adwoa Boateng. He knew that name. Min-jun left fashion magazines around the office sometimes, trying to convince Jin-woo that the world outside still existed. Her face had been on at least 3 of them. Min-jun caught his expression, started grinning. Oh, this is interesting. I'm going to the office, Jin-woo said again. You just realized that was her, the woman from the park. I have no idea what you're talking about. You have gravel dust on your jacket. You came home 8 minutes late, and now you're staring at a fashion model on television like you've seen a ghost. Jin-woo walked toward the door. The auction is tomorrow? 7 o'clock, but you already said you'd think about it. I'll be there. Min-jun's grin got wider. This is the best thing that's happened in years. Jin-woo left before Min-jun could say anything else, but in the car, being driven to his office, he couldn't stop thinking about the way she had looked at him. Like he was ridiculous. Like he was just some rude man on a running path, not the chairman of anything, not someone people bowed to. It was the most interesting he had felt in 7 years, and that scared him more than he wanted to admit. Adwoa came home at 7:30 in the morning, sweaty and tired and feeling slightly better. Running always helped. Not enough, but some. She opened the door to her apartment and immediately smelled something burning. "Oh no," she said out loud, and ran to the kitchen. All 3 triplets were in there. Kofi was standing on a chair trying to reach the smoke detector. Akosua was fanning a towel at the stove where something black and smoking was in a pan. Abena was opening windows. "What are you 3 doing?" Adwoa said, not quite yelling but close. All 3 of them spun around with identical guilty expressions. "Making breakfast," Kofi said. "Trying to make breakfast," Akosua corrected. "We wanted to surprise you," Abena added. Adwoa walked over and turned off the stove, looked into the pan. "What was this supposed to be?" "Pancakes," all 3 said together. "These are not pancakes. These are pancake-shaped disasters." "We followed the recipe exactly," Kofi said very seriously. He held up his tablet showing a video in English. "We measured everything." "Did you turn the heat down after you poured them?" Silence. "You have to turn the heat down," Adwoa said, trying not to laugh. "Otherwise they burn on the outside and stay raw in the middle." "Oh," Akosua said. "That explains a lot." Adwoa looked at her 3 children, all of them in their pajamas, Kofi with his glasses crooked, Abena with batter in her hair, Akosua holding a spatula like a sword. Her heart did that thing it always did. That squeeze that was love and sadness mixed together. "Okay," she said, "everybody sit down. I'll make actual pancakes." They sat at the kitchen table while she cleaned the pan and started over. They were speaking to each other in that mix of languages they did, switching from Korean to English to you and back without noticing. "Mama seemed distracted on her run," Kofi said in Korean. "How do you know?" Abena asked in English. "She came back 8 minutes later than usual," Kofi said, switching to English. "I checked." "Why do you check?" Adwoa asked, pouring batter into the pan, the heat on medium this time. "Because we worry," Akosha said simply. "You run alone in the dark." "It's not dark. The sun is coming up." "Still," Kofi said. "Anything could happen." Adwoa flipped a pancake, perfect golden brown. "Did something happen this morning?" Abena asked, too casually. Adwoa looked at her. Abena had that expression, the one she got when she was fishing for information. "Why do you ask?" "You look bothered." "I'm not bothered." "You have your bothered face on," Akoswa said. "Your eyebrows do this thing." She demonstrated, scrunching her eyebrows together. "My eyebrows do not do a thing." "They absolutely do," Kofi said. "So what happened?" Adwoa sighed and flipped another pancake. "I crashed into someone. While running. It was nothing." All 3 triplets leaned forward at exactly the same time, like they were 1 person instead of 3. "A man?" Abena asked. "How did you possibly know that?" "Your voice changed when you said someone," Akosua said. "You got higher pitched." "I did not." "You did," Kofi confirmed. "So it was a man. What did he look like?" "I'm not having this conversation." "Was he handsome?" Abena pressed. "Was he nice?" Akosua added. "Did you get his name?" Kofi wanted to know. No, and no, he was rude. I was running and he was running and we crashed and he immediately acted like it was my fault. "But was he handsome though?" Abena asked again. Adwoa put pancakes on 3 plates and brought them to the table. "Eat your breakfast." The triplets exchanged a look. One of those looks. Adwoa saw it and felt a little spike of worry. What was that? What was what? Nakosua said, too innocent. That look. You three just had an entire conversation without talking. What are you plotting? Nothing, they all said together, which meant absolutely they were plotting something. We just think, Kofi said carefully, cutting his pancake into precise squares, that maybe it would be nice if you talked to people sometimes. Besides us. I talk to people all the time. For work, Abena said. We mean for fun. I have fun. All three of them looked at her with expressions that said they did not believe that even a little bit. Adwoa sat down with her own pancake and looked at her 9-year-old children who somehow knew her better than anyone else in the world. I'm fine, she said quietly. I have you three. That's enough. But don't you get lonely? Akosua asked, just as quiet. And what could Adwoa say? Yes. Sometimes at night, when you're all asleep, I sit in the living room and feel like I'm on an island by myself. Yes, sometimes I wish there was another adult to talk to, someone who knew me before I was this person everyone recognizes. Yes, your question last night about having a daddy who comes to school made me cry in the shower this morning. She couldn't say any of that, so she said, I have everything I need right here. The triplets looked at each other again. Then Kofi said, Okay, Mama. But Adwoa knew that tone. That was the tone they used when they were absolutely going to do something she wouldn't approve of. They just hadn't figured out what yet. She was going to have to watch them very carefully. The next evening, Adwoa stood in front of her closet trying to decide what to wear to the charity auction. She had not wanted to go. She had fittings all day tomorrow. She had interviews scheduled. She was tired. But the triplets had registered her without asking, and when she tried to say no, all three of them had looked at her with those faces. The faces that said, Please, Mama, we never ask for anything, this one time, please. So here she was, looking at dresses. The blue one, Akosha said from the doorway. Adwoa turned around. All three triplets were standing there, already dressed. Kofi in a tiny suit that fit him perfectly, black with a silver tie. Abena in a dark green dress that had pockets, which was the only reason she agreed to wear it. Akosua in deep purple with her hair pulled back. When did you three get ready? Adwoa asked. An hour ago, Kofi said. We've been waiting. The auction starts at 7. It's only 5:30. We know, Abena said. But we wanted to make sure we had time to help you pick the right dress. I can pick my own dress. Can you, though? Akosua asked, tilting her head. Because you've been staring at your closet for 20 minutes. Adwoa looked at her 9-year-old daughter and wondered, not for the first time, how children could be so small and so absolutely certain about everything at the same time. Fine, she said. Which blue one? The navy one with the silver thread, Akosua said immediately. It's elegant but not trying too hard. You look like yourself in it. Adwoa pulled out the dress, held it up. Akosua was right, she always was, which was becoming a problem. Okay, this one. Now go wait in the living room while I get dressed. We'll be timing you, Kofi called as they left. The car comes at 6:15. Adwoa got dressed, did her makeup simple, put on the silver earrings the triplets had given her last birthday. When she came out, all three of them looked up from the couch where they were sitting in a row like small judges. Perfect, Abena said. You look beautiful, Mama, Kofi added. Like a queen, Akosua finished. You three are very good at compliments when you want something. We always want you to be happy, Akosua said, suddenly serious. That's not manipulation. That's just true. And what could Adwoa say to that, The car arrived exactly at 6:15. The driver held the door while all four of them got in. The triplets sat on one side, Adwoa on the other. They looked out the windows as Seoul went past, all those lights coming on as the sun went down. "Remember," Adwoa said, "we're not staying late. We say hello to people, I present the award they asked me to present, we leave." "Of course," Kofi said. "Absolutely," Abena agreed. "Whatever you say, Mama," Akosua added. They were all lying. Adwoa could tell. But the car was already pulling up to the Grand Hyatt, and there were photographers outside, and it was too late to turn around now. The triplets got out first. Cameras started flashing immediately. People started calling questions in Korean and English. "Akosua, look here." "Kofi, who designed your suit?" "Abena, where's your mother?" Adwoa stepped out and the noise got louder. She smiled the smile she used for cameras, took the triplets' hands, walked toward the entrance. This was the part of her job she had never gotten used to. All these people, all this noise, all these eyes. But the triplets loved it. They waved, they posed, they answered questions in whichever language the question was asked. By the time they got inside, Adwoa's cheeks hurt from smiling. The ballroom was full of people in expensive clothes, holding champagne glasses, talking in clusters. There were tables set up with white cloths and flowers, a stage at the front, auction items on display along one wall. A woman in a headset rushed over. "Ms. Botang, thank you so much for coming. Your table is number 7, right up front. You'll be presenting the final award at 8:30. "Perfect," Adwoa said. "These are my children." "Oh, I know," the woman said, smiling at the triplets. "Everyone knows. You three are famous on your own." "We prefer to think of ourselves as independently successful," Kofi said seriously. The woman blinked, then laughed. "Right. Of course. Well, enjoy the evening." They found table 7, started to sit down. Then a voice called in Korean, "Akosua, Abena, Kofi." 3 kids from their school came running over, 2 girls and a boy, all in the triplets class. Adwoa recognized them from school pickup. "You guys look so cool," one of the girls said. Her name was Soyeon. "Kofi, is that a real Burberry suit?" "Yes," Kofi said, like it was not a big deal at all. "Do you want to come see the auction items with us?" the boy asked. His name was Jin-woo. "There's a really old sword and a painting that's worth like 1,000,000,000 won." The triplets looked at Adwoa. "Can we, Mama?" "Stay where I can see you," Adwoa said, "and don't touch anything." "We never touch things," Abena said. "You absolutely do touch things." "We touch things carefully," Abena corrected, and then all 6 kids ran off toward the display tables. Adwoa sat down, and immediately an older woman at the table leaned over. "Your children are so well behaved. How do you do it?" "I honestly have no idea," Adwoa said truthfully. "I think they just came like this." The woman laughed. They started talking about small things, nothing important. Adwoa was only half listening. She was watching the triplets across the room, making sure they weren't breaking anything or causing problems. That's when Jin-woo walked in. She noticed him immediately, which annoyed her. The rude man from the park. He was wearing a dark suit, looking like he wished he was anywhere else. Another man was with him, shorter, friendlier looking, steering him toward a table. Jin-woo was scanning the room like he was looking for exits. Then his eyes passed over Adwoa and stopped, came back. Recognition hit his face. Adwoa looked away quickly, pretended she hadn't seen him. Her heart was beating faster and she did not know why. Across the room, the triplets had definitely seen him. All 3 of them had stopped looking at the auction items and were staring at the man in the dark suit. "Abena," Akosha whispered. 3 o'clock, dark suit. That's him. That's who? Soyeon asked. Nobody, all three triplets said together. But Kofi was already pulling out his phone, pretending to take a selfie but actually typing something. He pulled up the auction guest list. It took him about 40 seconds to find the right name. Jin-woo, he read quietly. Chairman of Seohan Group, age 34, widowed 7 years ago. No public relationship since. He looked up at his sisters. They looked back at him. This is very interesting, Abina said slowly. Did you see the way Mama looked at him? Akosua asked. She looked and then looked away very fast, Abina confirmed. That means something. What means something? Junho asked, very confused. Nothing, Kofi said. Hey, let's go back to the tables. I want to see the auction. The 6 kids headed back, but the triplets were not thinking about the auction anymore. They were thinking about the way their mother's shoulders had changed when that man walked in. The way she suddenly got very interested in her water glass. Their mother never got nervous, but she looked nervous now. The auction started at 7:30. Everyone sat down. A man in a tuxedo got on stage and started talking about the children's hospital, about all the good work they did, about how the money raised tonight would help so many families. Adwoa clapped when everyone else clapped, but she was very aware of where Jin-woo was sitting. 4 tables away, she could feel him not looking at her. Now, the auctioneer said, we'll begin with our first item, a painting by Park Seo-bo, one of Korea's most important artists. The bidding started. Numbers went up fast. Someone won it for 80 million won. The next item was a piece of jewelry, then a weekend at a resort, then a private dinner with a famous chef. Adwoa was barely paying attention until the auctioneer said, and now something very special. This is a Kagami no Tama, a mirror ball from Japan, 17th century. It's said to bring peaceful sleep to whoever keeps it near. Quite rare, quite beautiful. Shall we start the bidding at 5 million won? Adwoa looked at the stage. They were wheeling out a glass sphere held in a silver frame. It caught the light and threw little rainbows across the ceiling. It was beautiful. Next to her, Akosha sat up straight. Mama, she whispered. That's so pretty. It is, baby, Adwoa whispered back. Do you think it really works? Abena asked quietly. The peaceful sleep thing? Adwoa's heart squeezed. Her children knew. They knew she had nightmares. They heard her walking around at 3 in the morning. They pretended to be asleep when she checked on them at 4. I don't know, she said softly. Can we get it? Kofi asked. Sweet boy, that's very expensive for something that might not even work. Before any of them could respond, a voice from across the room called out, 10 million won. Everyone turned to look. It was Jin-woo. His paddle was up. His face was blank. The auctioneer smiled. 10 million won from table 12. Do I hear 15? Adwoa looked at her children's faces. All 3 of them were staring at the glass ball like it was the most important thing in the world, because they thought it would help her sleep. They thought it would take away her bad dreams. She picked up her paddle. 15 million won. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Heads turned toward her table. Jin-woo's head turned. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Adwoa smiled at him. Not a friendly smile. A smile that said, you don't intimidate me. Jin-woo's expression did something complicated. Then he raised his paddle again. 20 million won. The room was definitely watching now. The auctioneer looked delighted. 20 million won from table 12. Do I hear 25? Mama, Kofi whispered. That's a lot of money. It's for charity, Adwoa whispered back. Then louder. 25 million won. She was looking right at Jin-woo when she said it, challenging him, daring him. His friend next to him leaned over and whispered something. Jin-woo shook his head, raised his paddle. 30 million won. The triplets exchanged looks. This was getting out of hand. But also, this was the most interesting thing that had happened in months. Then Kofi did something that surprised everyone, including his mother and sisters. He stood up on his chair, grabbed his mother's paddle out of her hand, and held it as high as he could reach. 35 million won, he shouted. The entire room went silent for half a second. Then people started laughing. Not mean laughing, delighted laughing. A 9-year-old boy in a perfect suit, standing on a chair, bidding 35 million won with absolute confidence. The auctioneer was grinning. I have 35 million won from the young gentleman at table 7. Sir, do I hear 40? Everyone looked at Jin-woo. He was looking at Kofi, at this small, brave child standing on a chair, holding a paddle, determined. Jin-woo thought about the son he never got to meet, the son who would have been 7 now, who might have stood on chairs at auctions, who might have been brave and funny and loud. He lowered his paddle. Sold, the auctioneer called, to the young gentleman in the excellent suit for 35 million won. The room burst into applause. Kofi climbed down from his chair looking very pleased with himself. Akosua and Abena were staring at him like he had just done something either brilliant or completely stupid. They hadn't decided which yet. Adwoa pulled Kofi close and whispered, That was 35 million won, Kofi Emmanuel Boateng. For charity, Mama, he whispered back, using her exact words from earlier. You always say we should give generously. I'm going to need you to define generously because I don't think we're using the same definition. Too late now, Kofi said cheerfully. We won. During the dinner service, the triplets disappeared. 1 minute they were eating their chicken and vegetables. The next minute all 3 chairs were empty. Adwoa was halfway through a conversation with the hospital director when she realized. She looked around the ballroom, starting to panic. The triplets were good kids, but they were also 9 and curious and completely unpredictable. She excused herself and started searching. Checked the bathrooms, checked the hallway, checked the lobby. Finally spotted them across the ballroom, standing in front of table 12. Standing in front of Seo Jin-woo. Adwoa's heart stopped. She started walking toward them fast, not running because there were too many people, but definitely faster than was polite. The triplets had arranged themselves in a very specific formation. Akosua in front, holding the wooden box that contained the Kagami no Tama. Kofi and Abena on either side of her, like guards. They bowed to Jin-woo. All 3 at once, perfectly synchronized, very formal, very respectful. Jin-woo, who had been eating his dinner and trying to ignore everyone, put down his fork and straightened in his chair. Up close, he could see how much they looked like their mother. Akosua had her eyes. Kofi had her smile. Abena had her way of standing, very straight, very sure. Mr. Seo, Akosua said in perfect Korean, her voice clear and polite. We want to give this to you. She held out the box. Jin-woo stared at it, then at her, then at the other 2 children. I don't understand. You want it. Our mother won it, Kofi corrected gently. We told her to bid, but we did it because we saw you wanted it first, and then we saw you stop bidding when I stood on the chair, and we talked about it just now in the hallway, and we think you need it more than we do. Jin-woo's throat felt tight. These children were speaking to him like small adults, but underneath the grown-up words, there was something else. Kindness that hadn't been calculated, generosity that cost them something real. I can't accept this, he said, and his voice came out rougher than he meant. It's yours. You won it fairly. Abina stepped forward. She was the smallest of the three, with her hair in two puffs on either side of her head. She reached out and took Jin-woo's hands, turned them palm up like she was checking them, then placed the box in them. Her hands were so small against his, warm and certain. It's for bad dreams, she said, looking right into his eyes. Our mama says everyone deserves to sleep peacefully, even sad people, maybe especially sad people. Jin-woo looked down at this tiny child holding his hands like she was trying to heal something she was too young to even name. For the first time in 7 years, he felt tears want to come. He blinked hard, kept them back, stayed professional, but his voice shook a little when he said, "How did you know I have bad dreams?" "You have tired eyes," Akosha said simply. "Same as our mama. People with tired eyes don't sleep well." "You'll appreciate it, right?" Kofi asked, very serious. "You won't just put it in a closet and forget about it? You'll actually use it?" Jin-woo had negotiated deals worth billions of won. He had faced down hostile board members and corporate raiders. He had rebuilt an entire company division from nothing. But he had absolutely no idea what to say to these 3 9-year-olds who were looking at him like they could see straight through to all his broken places. "I'll appreciate it," he managed. "I promise." "Good," Abina said, satisfied. She let go of his hands and stepped back. Then Adwoa's voice cut through, not loud but very firm. "Kids, what did I tell you about bothering people?" All 3 triplets turned around. Adwoa was standing 3 feet behind them, arms crossed, wearing an expression that was part embarrassed and part something else Jin-woo couldn't name. "We weren't bothering him, Mama," Kofi said innocently. "We were conducting a transaction." "A transaction?" Adwoa repeated. "Yes, a legally binding transfer of goods," Kofi said, like he was reading from a textbook. "Very official? Back to the table, right now." The triplets moved immediately, well trained, but before they left, all 3 of them bowed to Jin-woo again, perfectly synchronized like they had practiced. Then they walked back to table 7, holding hands, whispering to each other. Adwoa and Jin-woo were left standing there, 3 feet apart, both holding pieces of this strange moment. The ballroom noise surrounded them, music and laughter and conversation, but in their small pocket of space, it felt very quiet. "I'm sorry," Adwoa said, and she meant it. They're very determined when they decide something. "They're extraordinary," Jin-woo said, and he meant that too. A pause. Adwoa was very aware that people were probably watching them, the supermodel and the chairman standing close, talking. By tomorrow it would be in 3 different gossip articles. "I should return this," Jin-woo said, holding up the box. "They won't take it back? Once they've decided something, they're stubborn." Adwoa stopped. "I'm sorry. That sounded rude. I just meant they're very sure of themselves." "I wonder where they get that from," Jin-woo said, and there was the smallest hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Their eyes met properly for the first time since the park. Adwoa saw him differently now, not just the rude runner, someone tired, someone carrying something heavy. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Seo," she said quietly, and walked back to her table. Jin-woo watched her go, sat back down, opened the box and looked at the glass sphere inside. It was beautiful, delicate, supposedly magic. Minjun leaned over, grinning like this was the best entertainment he'd had in months. "So, that went well. Those children just gave me a 35 million won artifact. Those children just decided you're going to marry their mother. You realize that, right? That's ridiculous. Is it? Did you see the way they looked at you, Like they were measuring you for something? Like they were deciding if you were good enough. They're 9. They're strategic 9-year-olds, which is the most dangerous kind. Minjun took a sip of his wine, still grinning. This is going to be fun to watch. Jin-woo looked across the ballroom. The triplets were back at their table, heads together, whispering, plotting something. Adwoa was trying to pay attention to the person talking to her, but she kept glancing at her children with an expression that was worried and fond at the same time. I'm in trouble, Jin-woo said quietly. Oh yes, Minjun agreed. Very much, yes. That night, very late, the triplets were supposed to be asleep. They were not asleep. They were all in Akosu's bed, which was the biggest. Kofi had his laptop. Abena had her notebook. Akosua had her fountain pen, the fancy one she used for special writing. He's perfect, Abena said again. She'd said it 4 times already. Mama looked happy, Akosua added. Did you see her face when she was bidding against him? She was smiling. A real smile, not the camera smile. They're both sad, Kofi said, scrolling through articles on his laptop. Look, this is from 7 years ago. He turned the screen so his sisters could see. It was a wedding announcement. Seo Jin-woo and Kim Yuna. They looked young and happy and in love. Below the announcement was another article dated 3 months later. Tragedy as CEO's wife dies in childbirth. All 3 triplets went very quiet. Oh, Abena whispered. That's so sad. Kofi read out loud. Kim Yuna died from complications during delivery. The baby, a son, also did not survive. Seo Jin-woo has declined to comment. That's like us, Akosua said slowly. But worse. We lost Daddy, but we had each other. And we had Mama. He lost both of them at the same time. And he's been alone for 7 years, Abena said. That's so long to be alone. They sat with that for a minute. 3 9-year-olds, thinking about grief and loss and loneliness in the way children do, with more understanding than adults expect. We should help him, Kosua decided. And Mama. We should help both of them. How? Kofi asked. We write to him, Akosua said, because she was the writer, the one who thought in words and poems. We send him letters. And say what? Abena asked. We tell him about Mama, where she goes, what she likes. We test him a little bit, see if he's paying attention, see if he cares enough to try. And we sign them how? With our real names? Kofi wanted to know. Akosua smiled. No, we sign them your future children. Because it's bold, and it's true, and it will definitely get his attention. That's very presumptuous, Kofi said. Do you have a better idea? No, I think it's brilliant. Presumptuous, but brilliant. What if he doesn't read them? Abena worried. What if he thinks it's weird and throws them away? He'll read them, Akosua said with complete confidence. Adults always read things they're not supposed to. That's why they're so stressed all the time. Kofi opened a new document on his laptop. Okay. What do we say in the first letter? Akosua picked up her pen, started writing in her careful handwriting, the kind she practiced every morning because she thought beautiful handwriting was a lost art. She wrote, Dear future father, we gave you something for bad dreams tonight. We hope it works. We hope you put it somewhere you can see it, somewhere the morning light touches it. Our mama has bad dreams too. She doesn't tell us about them, but we hear her sometimes, walking around at 3 in the morning when she thinks we're asleep. We think people who have bad dreams should help each other. Don't you think that's true? Your future children. That's good, Kofi said, reading over her shoulder. Short, mysterious, makes him curious. Now we need to put Mama's perfume on it, Abena said. She disappeared and came back 2 minutes later with their mother's perfume bottle, the expensive one she only wore to important events. Abena sprayed the letter 3 times, very careful and even. The scent filled the room. Warm, a little bit sweet, expensive in a way that didn't announce itself. "How do we get this to him?" Kofi asked practically. Abena pulled a business card out of her dress pocket. "His secretary gave this to me when I asked for it at the auction. She thought I was collecting autographs." Kofi and Akosua stared at their sister. "You're terrifying," Kofi said, but he sounded impressed. "I'm prepared," Abena corrected. "There's a clear difference." They put the letter in an envelope, wrote his name and office address in Akosua's best handwriting, put a stamp on it. "We mail it tomorrow," Akosua decided. "First thing." "And then what?" Abena asked. "Then we wait and see if he writes back." "And if he doesn't?" Akosua smiled. "He will." 3 days later, Jin-woo's secretary, Ms. Han, brought in the morning correspondence with his coffee. She had worked for him for 6 years. She knew exactly how he liked things: quiet, efficient, no surprises. "Anything unusual?" Jin-woo asked without looking up from his computer screen. Ms. Han hesitated. "One item, hand-addressed, no return address, and it smells like perfume." That got his attention. He looked up. "Perfume?" She held out the envelope. Expensive paper. His name written in very careful, very elegant handwriting, like someone had taken their time. Jin-woo took it. The scent hit him immediately. Familiar. He couldn't place it at first. Then he could. The auction. Adwoa walking past his table, that scent in her wake. Ms. Han left quietly. Jin-woo turned the envelope over in his hands. No return address. Just his name and the office address. He opened it. The perfume was stronger inside. The letter was handwritten, same careful script as the envelope. He read it once, then again, then a third time. The Kagami no Tama. The bad dreams. Your future children. The triplets. It had to be. Those 3 9-year-olds had somehow gotten his office address and sent him a letter. Jin-woo stood up and walked to the window. The glass sphere was sitting exactly where the letter said to put it. Eastern light. Morning touching it. He had put it there without thinking. It just seemed right. He picked it up now, felt its weight, and something in his chest that had been tight for 7 years loosened just a little bit. Your future children. He should find this invasive, weird, inappropriate. 3 kids he barely knew, writing to him, calling themselves his future children. Instead, he was smiling, small, surprised. The kind of smile that felt strange on his face because it had been so long. He sat back down at his desk and did something he had not done in 7 years. He pulled out nice paper from his drawer, found a pen that wrote smoothly, and he wrote back. Dear future children, the Kagami no Tama sits by my window where morning light finds it, exactly where you said. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for your kindness. You're right about bad dreams. I've had the same one for 7 years, every night, but last night I didn't. I don't know if it was the glass sphere or your words or just coincidence, but I slept. Peacefully. For the first time in a very long time. Maybe people who have bad dreams should help each other. Maybe 3 very smart children are already helping more than they know. SJW. He read it over, almost didn't send it. This was strange. This was him writing to 9-year-olds about his grief and his sleep and his dreams. But the letter was already in the envelope, already stamped. He gave it to Ms. Han and said, Can you mail this, please? She took it without asking questions, which was why he had kept her as his secretary for 6 years. After she left, Jin-woo sat at his desk and wondered what exactly he was doing. But he was also wondering what they would write back. If they would write back. He was curious. And curiosity was something he had not felt in 7 years. 2 days later, another letter arrived. Then 3 days after that, another one. Then another. Each one handwritten in that same careful script. Each one scented with that same perfume. Each one signed "Your future children." The second letter was a poem about rivers that run underground, invisible but still moving, still alive. At the bottom, hidden in the last line, were coordinates. Jin-woo put the coordinates into his phone. A farmer's market in Adwoa. Saturday mornings. The third letter said, "Our mama's favorite bookstore is the one on the 3rd floor of the building where no one expects books. She goes on Wednesdays at 3 in the afternoon when she thinks no one is watching, but we always know where she is. We pay attention to the people we love." The fourth letter was more direct. "Mama doesn't know we're writing to you. She would say we're being inappropriate, but we've been watching her since we were born, obviously. And we've never seen her look at someone the way she looked at you at the auction. Like you were a surprise. Mama doesn't get surprised very often. We want her to have more surprises. Good ones." Jin-woo wrote back to each letter. Not long responses, just honest ones. To the poem, "I haven't read poetry since university. I forgot how much can hide in a few words. Thank you." To the bookstore letter, "I haven't been to a bookstore without a purpose in 7 years. This feels dangerous and possibly ridiculous. What kind of books does she like?" To the direct letter, "Your mother deserves every good thing. I'm not convinced I qualify, but I'm still reading your letters, which should tell you something about my judgment." The triplets read his responses together, huddled in Akosua's bed like they were decoding secret messages. "He's getting better," Akosua announced after the 5th letter. "Listen to this." He says, "I went to the farmer's market yesterday. I didn't talk to anyone. I just walked around. But I saw her with you 3, negotiating with the vegetable seller in 3 different languages, and she was laughing, really laughing. I haven't heard someone laugh like that in 7 years. Thank you for showing me where to look." "He's following her," Kofi said. "He's interested," Abina corrected. "That's something else entirely." "Should we tell Mama?" Akosua asked. "Not yet," Kofi decided. "She'll make us stop, and we're so close." Over the next 2 weeks, Jin-woo went to every place the letters described. He wore a hood, stayed in the background, just watched. He saw Adwoa at the farmer's market, her hair pulled back, wearing normal clothes, looking nothing like the model on magazine covers. He saw her at the bookstore, running her fingers along spines like she was looking for a friend. He saw her outside the triplets' school, hugging all 3 of them when they ran out at pickup time. He didn't mean to become a presence in the background of her life, but the letters kept arriving and he kept following their breadcrumbs, and something in him that had been frozen for 7 years was starting to thaw. Then one afternoon, Adwoa's head of security called her. "Ms. Boateng," Mr. Cho said, and his voice was tense in a way that made her immediately scared. "We need to talk about your security footage." Adwoa left the triplets with their housekeeper and went straight to the police station. Mr. Cho was already there with a detective, both of them looking serious. "What's wrong?" Adwoa asked. "Are my children safe?" "The children are fine," the detective said. "But we've noticed something concerning. Look at this." He pulled up footage on a computer screen. Multiple locations, multiple dates, 2 weeks of compiled video. In each frame, a figure in a hood, always at a distance, always watching. "That's me at the farmer's market," Adwoa said, her voice getting tight. "Yes. And here's the same person outside the bookstore you visit. And here, near your children's school. Adwoa's blood went cold. Someone was following her. Someone knew her schedule, her patterns, where her children went to school. "Who is it?" she asked. "We can't get a clear face," Mr. Cho said. "But there's a pattern. Whoever this is, they know where you'll be and when." The detective clicked through more footage. "We have one semi-clear shot. Here." He zoomed in on a frame. The figure was reaching up to adjust his hood and a necklace was visible. Silver chain. Small pendant. Adwoa stopped breathing. She knew that necklace. She had picked it up off the ground 2 weeks ago, after crashing into someone on her run. After their eyes met, and he looked at her like she had disrupted his entire world. Seo Jin-woo had been following her. "Ms. Botang?" the detective prompted. "Do you recognize this person?" She should say yes, should tell them exactly who it was, should let them handle it. But this was her confrontation to have, not theirs. "No," she heard herself say. "I don't recognize him." The lie tasted bitter in her mouth, but she took the photograph they printed for her and left. In the car on the way home, she stared at that photo, at the necklace she had touched, at the man who had somehow been watching her for 2 weeks without her knowing. She wasn't scared. She was furious. The next morning, Adwoa walked into Seo Jin-woo's office building wearing sunglasses and an expression that made people move out of her way. She went straight to the reception desk. "I need to see Seo Jin-woo." The receptionist blinked. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "I'm sorry, but Mr. Seo doesn't see anyone without an appointment. If you'd like to schedule, call his secretary. Tell her Adwoa Boateng is here. Tell her it's urgent." The receptionist made the call. 2 minutes later, a woman came down, thin and professional and very polite. "Ms. Boateng, I'm Ms. Han. Mr. SEO's in a meeting right now, a very important meeting. If you could come back." "Which floor?" "I'm sorry? Which floor is his office on?" 15th. "But you can't just—" Adwoa was already walking toward the elevators. Ms. Han followed, talking fast. "Ms. Boateng, please. He's with the Japanese acquisition team. This meeting has been scheduled for months. He specifically said no interruptions." Adwoa got in the elevator. Pressed 15. Ms. Han got in too, still talking, but Adwoa wasn't listening. The elevator doors opened. Ms. Han rushed ahead. "At least let me tell him you're here." Adwoa walked past her, found the conference room by following the voices, and opened the door. Jin-woo was standing at the head of a long table. 6 men in suits were sitting around it. There were graphs on the screen behind him, papers everywhere. He was mid-sentence when the door opened. Everyone turned to look. Adwoa walked in, pulled off her sunglasses, and slammed a photograph on the conference table right in the middle of all those important papers. "Meeting's over," she said in Korean. Not loud, not shouting, but with complete authority. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Jin-woo said quietly, "Gentlemen, we'll reschedule." The Japanese executives looked at each other, started gathering their papers, filed out of the room one by one, very politely, very quickly. Ms. Han was the last to leave. She closed the door so gently it barely made a sound. Adwoa and Jin-woo stood on opposite sides of the conference table, the photograph between them, his necklace clearly visible. 2 weeks, Adwoa said, and her voice was shaking, but not with fear, with rage. "You've been following me for 2 weeks. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I don't have security?" Jin-woo's heart was racing. "I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been stalking me? Watching me? Watching my children? Do you have any idea how terrifying that is? Do you have any idea what I thought when the police showed me that footage? Ask your kids. Jin-woo said. Ask them about the letters. Adwoa stopped. What? The letters, he said again. He walked to his desk, unlocked a drawer, pulled out a stack of envelopes. 8 of them, all in Akosha's handwriting, all scented with Adwoa's perfume. He brought them back to the table and spread them out. Adwoa stared, picked one up, opened it, read her daughter's handwriting, smelled her own perfume on the paper. Your children, Jin-woo said quietly, have been writing to me for 2 weeks, signing the letters, your future children, telling me where you'd be and when, testing me. I wasn't following you, I was following their instructions. Adwoa read another letter, then another, each one in Akosha's careful script, each one scented with her perfume, each one describing her life, her habits, her favorite places. I'm going to kill them, she said faintly. They're trying to help. They think you're lonely. They think I'm lonely. Jin-woo stopped. They're not wrong, about me at least. That doesn't give you the right to follow me. I know. You're right. I should have contacted you directly. I should have told you what they were doing. He moved closer, not quite around the table, but not as far away. But I haven't felt curious about anything in 7 years. Then 3 children gave me a glass ball and started writing me letters, and I wanted to understand. I wanted to see who had raised such extraordinary kids. Adwoa looked at him. Really looked. Past her anger, past her fear. She saw exhaustion, honesty, someone trying very hard to do something he didn't know how to do. You can't follow people, she said, but the anger had drained from her voice. Even if my meddling children give you permission. It's not okay. I know, I'm sorry. She gathered up the letters, all 8 of them, evidence of her children's elaborate plot. I need to go talk to 3 9-year-olds who are about to lose every privilege they have. She walked to the door, put her hand on the handle. Adwoa, Jin-woo said. Her name and his voice stopped her. She didn't turn around, but she was listening. For what it's worth, he said quietly. I wasn't just following their instructions. I wanted to see you again. Adwoa stood very still, then opened the door and walked out. Jin-woo stood in his empty conference room, surrounded by abandoned acquisition plans and the faint scent of her perfume, and wondered if he had just destroyed something before it even had a chance to begin. Adwoa came home with the letters in her purse and murder in her eyes. The triplets were doing homework at the dining table, or pretending to. They looked up when she came in and their faces went from innocent to guilty in half a second. Living room, Adwoa said. Her voice was very calm, which was worse than yelling. The triplets knew this. Now. They walked to the living room and sat on the couch in a row, holding hands for moral support. Adwoa stood in front of them and pulled out the letters, all 8, dropped them on the coffee table one by one. Would anyone, she said still in that very calm voice, like to explain these? Silence. Then Kofi, because he could not lie to save his life, said, We were helping. Helping? You looked happy when you saw him at the auction, Akosha added quietly. Really happy. We haven't seen you look like that in a long time. So you decided to write to a stranger, pretending to be his future children, giving out my schedule, my locations, my private life. He's not a stranger, Abena protested. We researched him. He's very reputable. He's a widower who lost his wife and baby 7 years ago, Kofi added. He understands loss, like us, like you. Adwoa sat down on the coffee table so she was eye level with them. You cannot do this. You cannot send letters to men I barely know. You cannot give out information about where I go and when. You cannot matchmake without my permission. We just want you to be happy, Akosua said, and her voice broke a little. You work so hard, Mama. You give us everything. Don't you deserve someone too? And there it was. The thing Adwoa had been trying not to see. Her 9-year-old children worrying about her, trying to fix her loneliness, trying to give her what they thought she needed. I have you 3, Adwoa said gently. That's enough. But you cry at night, Abena whispered. We hear you. Adwoa's breath caught. She thought she had been so quiet, thought she'd hidden it so well. And you're sad on Sundays, Kofi added. You think we don't notice, but we do. And you never go anywhere fun, Akosua finished. Just work and home and us. That's not enough for a whole life, Mama. Adwoa looked at her 3 children who saw everything, who understood too much, who loved her so fiercely they were willing to scheme and plot and write letters to strangers. I love you 3 more than anything in this world, she said. But you cannot do things like this. It's not safe, and it's not fair to me or to Mr. Seo. Are you going to punish us? Kofi asked. Yes, no television, no video games, no weekend activities for a month. The triplets absorbed this, nodded. They had expected worse. Can we ask one question? Akosua said. 1. Did you like the letters? The things we told him about you? Did it make you happy that someone was paying attention? Adwoa wanted to say no, wanted to say she was only angry. But these were her children, and she had never lied to them. A little bit, she admitted, but that doesn't make it okay. The triplets looked at each other, one of those silent conversations. Okay, Mama, they said together. That night, after the triplets were in bed, Adwoa sat in her living room and read the letters again. All of them. The ones from her children and the ones Jin-woo had written back. His handwriting was neat. His words were careful. But they were honest too. He wrote about his dreams, his grief, his surprise at feeling curious again. She read one line over and over. I saw her laughing at the farmer's market, and it was like remembering that joy exists. Adwoa folded the letters carefully, put them in her nightstand drawer, and that night, when she had her nightmare about the ocean and Kwame pushing her toward air, she woke up and thought about someone else who understood bad dreams. She fell back asleep faster than she had in 7 years. Despite every intention to let the whole thing drop, to never think about Seo Jin-woo, or his letters, or the way he had looked at her in that conference room, Adwoa found herself standing outside his office building 1 week later with a box of tea in her hands. Expensive tea. The kind that came in a wooden box with individual packets wrapped in silk. Kofi had mentioned it 3 days ago at breakfast, very casually, how Jin-woo probably liked this specific brand because successful businessmen always drank expensive tea. Adwoa had not questioned how Kofi knew this. She was learning not to question how Kofi knew most things. She walked into the lobby and told the receptionist, I'm here to see Seo Jin-woo, just for a moment. I have something for him. The receptionist made a call. 2 minutes later, Ms. Han appeared, and this time she was smiling. Ms. Boateng, what a nice surprise. Please come up. In the elevator, Ms. Han said, He's been in a better mood this week. I don't know what happened, but it's nice. Adwoa did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Ms. Han led her to Jin-woo's office and knocked softly before opening the door. Mr. Seo, you have a visitor. Jin-woo looked up from his desk, saw Adwoa. His whole face changed, not a big change, just a softening around his eyes. Ms. Boateng, he said, standing up quickly. I won't stay long, Adwoa said, walking in. Ms. Han closed the door behind her. I just wanted to thank you properly for the auction donation and for being patient with my children. She held out the tea box. Jin-woo took it carefully, like it was more valuable than it was. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. It was an excuse. They both knew it, but neither of them said so. Would you like to sit? Jin-woo asked, gesturing to the chairs by his desk. I really can't stay. I have a fitting in 40 minutes. But she sat down anyway. They talked for 7 minutes about nothing important. About Seoul in the spring. About how the cherry blossoms would bloom soon. About whether the tea was actually worth its price or just expensive because of the box it came in. I think tea is tea, Adwoa said. People just like feeling fancy. That's probably true, Jin-woo agreed. But I'll drink it anyway and pretend I can taste the difference. Adwoa laughed, a real laugh. Jin-woo felt something in his chest unlock. When she left, he sat back down at his desk and held the tea box like it contained something much more precious than dried leaves and hot water. Minjin walked in 10 minutes later and saw the box, saw Jin-woo's face, started grinning. Don't, Jin-woo said. I didn't say anything. You're thinking it very loudly. I'm just noticing that you're smiling at a box of tea, like it proposed to you. Get out of my office. But Minjun was right. Jin-woo was smiling. And the tea did taste better than regular tea, even though it probably shouldn't. 2 weeks later, the triplets school had career day. Parents and community members were invited to come talk about their jobs. Kofi volunteered Jin-woo's name without asking permission from anyone, including Jin-woo. The first Jin-woo knew about it was when his secretary handed him a confirmation email. You're scheduled to speak at Hanseong International School on Friday at 10 in the morning, 4th grade classroom. Jin-woo read the email twice. I didn't sign up for this. According to this, a student named Kofi Boateng registered you. It says here he's your future son, which I assume is some kind of mistake in translation. Jin-woo closed his eyes. Those children. Those absolutely unstoppable children. He should cancel. He had a meeting Friday morning. He had reports to review. He had no idea how to talk to 9-year-olds about business ethics. He went anyway. The school was bright and loud and full of small people running in every direction. Jin-woo stood in the lobby feeling completely out of place until a teacher found him. Mr. Seo, I'm so glad you could make it. The children are very excited. Right this way. She led him to a classroom where 29-year-olds were sitting at desks, looking at him with varying levels of interest. The triplets were in the back row. All 3 of them waved. Everyone, the teacher said, this is Mr. Seo. He's going to tell us about his work. Jin-woo stood at the front of the classroom and looked at 20 expectant faces. He had given presentations to boards of directors, to shareholders, to rooms full of people who wanted to tear his company apart. But 9-year-olds were somehow more terrifying. Hello, he said. I run a company. We make a lot of different things, electronics mostly, phones and computers and parts for cars. A hand shot up, a girl in the front row. Do you make a lot of money? Soyeon, the teacher said. That's not polite. It's okay, Jin-woo said. Yes, I make a lot of money, but money isn't the most important part of the job. What is? Another kid asked. Jin-woo thought about it. Making sure everyone who works for me is treated fairly, making products that help people, trying to do the right thing even when the right thing is expensive or difficult. Kofi's hand went up. What do you do when someone at your company does something wrong? I find out why they did it first. Sometimes people make mistakes because they don't understand the rules. Sometimes they make mistakes because they're scared. Sometimes they make mistakes because they just don't care. The reason matters. And then what? Kofi pressed. Then I decide if they should get another chance or not. Everyone deserves one chance. Most people deserve two. But if someone keeps doing the wrong thing, even after you help them understand why it's wrong, then they can't work there anymore. Another hand. A boy this time. Is your job fun? Jin-woo paused. When was the last time someone asked him if his job was fun? When was the last time he thought about whether anything was fun? Sometimes, he said honestly. When we make something new that works really well. When we solve a problem no one else could solve. When I see people working together like a team. Those parts are fun. What about the not fun parts? Akosua asked. Meetings that last too long. People who argue just to argue. Having to tell someone their idea won't work. Paperwork. So much paperwork. The kids laughed. Jin-woo realized he was smiling. They asked him questions for 30 minutes. About his office, about how many people worked for him, about what he did if he made a mistake, about whether he had a secretary and what she did all day, about everything. And Jin-woo answered all of them, honestly, in words they could understand. When his time was up, the teacher thanked him and the class clapped. Jin-woo bowed slightly and turned to leave. In the hallway, he nearly crashed into Adwoa. She was carrying a camera and a bag of photography equipment, wearing jeans and a simple shirt, her hair pulled back. She looked nothing like a supermodel. She looked like a regular mother volunteering at her kid's school. "Mr. Seo," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Career day. Your son volunteered me without asking." "Of course he did." Adwoa sighed. "I'm so sorry. I'll talk to him." "Don't. I actually enjoyed it. Your kids ask very good questions. They ask too many questions." "No such thing." They stood in the hallway while children streamed past them, changing classes, loud and chaotic. A moment of quiet in the middle of noise. "I'm doing the photography session next," Adwoa said, "teaching them about cameras and light." "That sounds more interesting than business ethics." "I don't know. You made business ethics sound pretty interesting. I heard some of it through the wall." Their eyes met. Both of them smiled at the same time. "I should go," Jin-woo said. "I have a meeting at 11. And I have 29-year-olds waiting to take very blurry photos." But neither of them moved for another few seconds. Finally, Jin-woo said, "It was good to see you." "You too." He walked away. Adwoa watched him go, then went into her classroom where the triplets were absolutely vibrating with excitement. "Did you see him, Mama?" Abina whispered. "Did you talk?" Akosua added. "We talked for 30 seconds in a hallway. That's all." "That's something," Kofi said, very satisfied. That night, Adwoa's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for letting me talk to your kids' class. Even though I was not told, it was the most interesting morning I've had in a long time." Adwoa stared at the message, then typed back, "How did you get my number?" "Kofi gave it to me. He said you wouldn't mind. If you do mind, I'll delete it." Adwoa should mind, should tell him to delete it, should stop whatever this was before it became something. Instead, she wrote, "I don't mind." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Good?" Adwoa fell asleep holding her phone like a teenager, and when she woke up in the morning, she was smiling. 2 days later, Jin-woo had a meeting scheduled at a cafe in Itaewon, the same cafe where Adwoa got coffee every Tuesday afternoon. This was not a coincidence. Jin-woo had checked her schedule. Well, Kofi had mentioned it in one of the letters that Jin-woo had photocopied even though he was supposed to stop reading them. He got there at 2:30, ordered coffee, sat at a table by the window with his laptop and pretended to work. Adwoa walked in at 3 exactly. She saw him immediately, stopped, looked at him with an expression that said she knew exactly what he was doing. Jin-woo looked up like he was surprised. Adwoa, what a coincidence. This is my cafe, she said, walking over. Is it? I had no idea. You're a terrible liar. Your children are very informative correspondents. Adwoa should leave, should take her coffee to go, should stop encouraging this. She sat down at his table. I'm starting to think my children are running my entire life, she said. They're very strategic. It's impressive. It's terrifying. Jin-woo smiled. That too. They talked for an hour. About everything except the important things. About Seoul versus other cities they had lived in. About the worst foods they had ever eaten. Fermented shark in Iceland, Jin-woo said, for a business deal. It was like chewing on a tire that had been soaked in ammonia. Snails in France, Adwoa countered. Everyone said they were delicious. They tasted like rubber and butter. Did you eat them anyway? Every single one. It was a Fashion Week dinner. You can't insult the designer's favorite food. I ate the entire piece of shark. The client was watching. They both started laughing. Really laughing. The kind of laughing that made other people in the cafe turn and look. When Adwoa finally left, 2 hours later than she meant to, she realized she was happy. Just simple, uncomplicated, happy. That night, Jin-woo texted, "Coffee is better than tea, I've decided." Adwoa texted back, "You're objectively wrong, but I admire your confidence." Want to argue about it over coffee next week? Adwoa stared at her phone. This was becoming something. Something real. Something that could hurt if it ended. Yes, she typed anyway. The next week, Adwoa went to Jin-woo's office to drop off some documents he had left at the cafe. Just documents, nothing important. But she went anyway. The secretary's desk was empty. Adwoa knocked on Jin-woo's office door and heard a voice say, "Come in." She opened the door. Jin-woo was not there. His father was. An older man, broad and warm-looking, sitting in Jin-woo's chair with his feet up on the desk, reading something on a tablet. He looked up when Adwoa entered and his whole face lit up. "You must be Adwoa," he said in English, accented but confident. "I've heard so much about you." Adwoa froze. "I'm sorry. I was looking for Jin-woo. He went to get me tea. Very stubborn about it. I said the secretary could do it, but he insisted." The chairman stood up, came around the desk, held out his hand. "I'm his father. You can call me Chairman CO, or just Chairman. Everyone does." Adwoa shook his hand, completely off balance. "It's nice to meet you." Sit. He'll be back any minute." "Tell me, how are the triplets? My son said so much about them. And oh, I even saw them on the news last week at some event. Very well dressed, very articulate. They're good. They're always good. Sometimes too good." The chairman laughed, big and booming. "Smart children are dangerous. They see too much. My Jin-woo was like that. Always 10 steps ahead of everyone else." He sat back down, gestured for Adwoa to sit too. She did, still not quite sure what was happening. "Let me tell you about Jin-woo when he was small," the chairman said, leaning forward like he was sharing a secret. "He was 7 years old, decided he wanted to learn to cook. Watched me make breakfast one morning and thought, how hard can this be?" "Oh no," Adwoa said. "Oh yes." He got up at 5 in the morning while everyone was sleeping. Got eggs, got a pan, turned the stove on high. Do you know what happens when a 7-year-old cooks eggs on high heat? Fire? So much smoke. The smoke alarm went off. The housekeeper came running. My wife thought the house was burning down, and Jin-woo was standing in the middle of it all with the pan, looking completely confused about why the eggs were black. Adwoa laughed. She could picture it. Jin-woo as a small boy, serious and determined and absolutely in over his head. The chairman told her more stories. Jin-woo, at 15, studying until 3 in the morning because he refused to get anything less than perfect scores. Jin-woo, at 20, taking over his first company division and working so hard he forgot to eat for 2 days straight. Jin-woo, bringing Yuna home for the first time, nervous in a way his father had never seen him nervous about anything else. He loved her completely, the chairman said, and his voice got quieter. When she died, he stopped being complete too. For 7 years, I watched my son be half a person, going through motions, running his company like a machine, living like a machine. No joy, no curiosity, no life. He looked at Adwoa directly. Then he came home from a charity auction talking about 3 children who gave him a glass ball. He was confused about it, a little bit angry, but alive. His eyes were alive again. That's when I knew. Knew what? Adwoa asked softly. That maybe someone had gotten through. That maybe he was ready to try again. The door opened. Jin-woo walked in carrying a tea tray and stopped dead when he saw Adwoa sitting across from his father. Abeoji, he said, and his voice was strangled. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting. I am resting. Look how relaxed I am. The chairman gestured at himself. Sitting, talking, very restful. You're bothering my guest. I'm entertaining your guest. Can't you tell? We were having a wonderful conversation about you as a child. Jin-woo's face did something complicated. He looked at Adwoa with an expression that was half embarrassed, half something else she couldn't name. I'm so sorry. He has no sense of boundaries. I like the stories, Adwoa said, smiling, especially the eggs. The eggs were not my finest moment. The eggs were hilarious, the chairman said. He stood up, stretched. Well, I should go. Doctor's appointment. Very boring. Adwoa, it was wonderful to meet you. We should have dinner sometime. You and the children get to know each other properly. He hugged Jin-woo, whispered something in his ear that made Jin-woo close his eyes, then walked out, humming. Adwoa and Jin-woo stood in the quiet office, both processing what just happened. I really am sorry, Jin-woo said. He's very enthusiastic about everything. I liked him. He clearly loves you a lot. He's trying to manage my life. He thinks I don't know, but I absolutely know. The triplets are trying to manage my life too. Maybe we're both just very manageable. Jin-woo smiled. Or maybe we're both very bad at telling the people who love us to stop interfering. Probably that. Adwoa handed him the documents. You left these at the cafe. I thought you might need them. Thank you. She wanted to leave. She had stayed too long already. But Jin-woo was looking at her with those tired eyes that seemed a little less tired every time she saw him, and she didn't want to go yet. Would you like to have dinner? Jin-woo asked suddenly. Not at a restaurant. At my house, I'll cook. Or try to cook. Fair warning, I'm not very good at it. Adwoa knew she should say no. Going to his house was different from coffee shops and offices. It was personal, private, real. Okay, she said. Really? Yes. But if you burn the eggs, I'm leaving. That's fair. They set a date for the following Friday. When Adwoa left, she realized she was nervous. Actually nervous, like she was 20 again and going on a first date with Kwame. That night, she told the triplets she was having dinner with Jin-woo. All 3 of them looked at each other, then at her. Then they started screaming and jumping on the couch like she had just announced they were going to Disneyland. Okay, calm down, Adwoa said. It's just dinner. It's not just dinner, Akosua said. It's a date at his house. That's very romantic. It's not romantic. He's trying to cook and he's bad at it. I'll probably end up helping him. That's extremely romantic, Abena said. You three need to learn what words mean. But they were right, and Adwoa knew it. This was becoming something, and she was letting it happen. Friday evening, Adwoa stood outside Jin-woo's house, trying not to panic. The house was beautiful. Traditional Korean architecture mixed with something modern. Private. Quiet. She rang the doorbell. Jin-woo answered immediately, like he had been waiting right by the door. He was wearing casual clothes, jeans and a sweater. She had never seen him in anything but suits. He looked younger, less guarded. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she said back. He let her in. The house was beautiful inside too. But as Adwoa walked through it, she started to understand something. Nothing had changed. Photos of Yuna everywhere. On the walls, on the tables, on the mantel. The furniture looked like it had been placed years ago and never moved. Everything was clean but frozen. Like a museum. Like a moment in time preserved perfectly. Jin-woo was watching her face, seeing her understand. "I know," he said quietly. "I know what it looks like." Adwoa didn't say anything. What could she say? They went to the kitchen. Jin-woo had ingredients laid out, vegetables, meat, rice. A recipe pulled up on his phone. "I'm making bibimbap," he announced. "How hard can it be? You just put things in a bowl." "That's not quite how it works." "I'm going to learn that the hard way, aren't I?" "Probably." They cooked together. Or Adwoa cooked while Jin-woo tried to help and mostly just got in the way. He didn't know how to cut vegetables properly, didn't know how hot the pan should be, forgot to wash the rice before cooking it. "This is a disaster," he said, looking at the rice that was now a sticky mess. "It's salvageable. We'll just add more water and call it congee. That's not even the same meal. Welcome to cooking. Everything is improvisation and panic." They were laughing when Jin-woo reached for a bowl on a high shelf and accidentally knocked a plate off. It fell and shattered on the floor, pieces scattering everywhere. The sound was obscenely loud in the quiet house. Jin-woo's face changed, went white. He stared at the broken pieces. "That was Yuna's favorite set," he said, and his voice was sharp, louder than he had ever spoken to her. "They don't make these anymore. She picked them out before we moved in. I've kept them perfect for 7 years and now they're broken." Adwoa froze, looked at the broken ceramic on the floor, then at Jin-woo, then at the broken ceramic again. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'll replace them." "You can't replace them." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Adwoa set down the vegetables she was holding, very carefully, very gently. "I should go." "Adwoa, wait, I didn't mean—" "It's fine." She walked to get her coat from where she had left it by the door. "I understand. You're not ready for this, for someone to be in her space, that's okay. But I can't be the person who breaks things in a museum." "This isn't a museum." Adwoa looked around at the unchanged furniture, the preserved photos, the 7 years of nothing moving or changing or growing. "Isn't it?" She pulled on her coat. "Jin-woo, I've lived with grief too. I know what it looks like when someone is still married to their ghost, and I can't compete with that. I won't. I'm not asking you to compete. Aren't you? Every time I'll be here, she'll be here too. In every room, every object, every memory. And that's okay. She should be remembered. But you have to decide if you want a house full of perfect memories or a life that's messy and real and moves forward." She opened the door, stopped. "When you decide, let me know. but I can't keep breaking things while you try to keep everything exactly the same." She left, pulled the door closed behind her so gently it barely made a sound. Jin-woo stood in his kitchen with broken ceramic on his floor and the smell of burning rice in the air and the echo of the door closing. Then he sat down right there on the floor next to the broken plate and cried. Really cried. Not controlled, not quiet. He sobbed like something in him had finally broken too. Like 7 years of holding everything perfectly in place had finally become too much. He cried for Yuna, who he had loved and lost, for his son, who he never got to meet, for 7 years of living in a house that was really a tomb, for the woman who just walked out his door because he couldn't let go of the past long enough to hold on to the present. He cried until there was nothing left. Then he sat in the silence and looked at his unchanged house and understood, finally, what everyone had been trying to tell him. You can't have both, the perfect past and the messy future. You have to choose. 2 days later, the triplets showed up at Jin-woo's office. Ms. Han called his desk. "Mr. Essio, there are 3 children here to see you. They say it's urgent." Jin-woo knew exactly which 3 children. "Send them in." They walked into his office in formation, Akosua in front, Kofi and Abina on either side. They were not smiling. Jin-woo gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "Sit." They sat. "What did you do to our mommy?" Akosua asked. No greeting, no politeness, just the question. Jin-woo could lie, could deflect, but these children had been trying to help him for weeks. They deserved honesty. "I yelled at her. She broke a plate by accident, and I yelled at her. It was my fault. I was wrong." "Why did you yell?" Kofi asked, not accusing, genuinely trying to understand. "Because I've kept my house exactly the same since my wife died, and when something broke, I couldn't handle it. I'm not as brave as you 3. Abina got up from her chair, walked around the desk, and climbed into Jin-woo's lap. Just climbed up like she had every right to be there, like he was her father and she was seeking comfort. Jin-woo's breath caught. This small, brave girl, sitting in his lap, putting her little hands on his face. "Our mama cries at night sometimes," Abena said softly, looking right into his eyes. "We hear her through the wall. She thinks we don't know, but we do. And we climb into her bed and we make her laugh until the crying stops. That's what you do when you love someone. You help them until the sadness gets smaller." Akosua moved closer. "Your wife loved you. We read about her. She sounds wonderful. And we think she would be sad if she knew you stopped living. Our daddy died saving our mama because he loved her so much, but mama didn't stop living. She built a whole life. She built us." Kofi stood next to Jin-woo's chair. "You have to choose. The house exactly how it was, or a life that changes and breaks things and grows. You can't have both." Jin-woo was still holding Abina. This child who had climbed into his lap like she was trying to fill a space his son never got to occupy. Looking at Akosua and Kofi with their mother's eyes, their father's courage. "You're right," he said, and his voice was rough with emotion. "You're absolutely right. I've been choosing wrong, and I miss your mother. I know I messed up, and she probably doesn't want to see me, but I miss her. It's only been 2 days, and I miss her." The triplets looked at each other, one of those silent conversations. "We can fix this," Kofi declared, "but you have to do exactly what we say. I'm taking advice from 9-year-olds. We got you this far," Akosha pointed out. "Don't doubt us now." "What do I have to do?" Abena climbed down from his lap. All 3 of them stood in front of his desk like tiny generals planning a war. "First," Akosua said, "you have to change your house. You don't have to erase your wife, but you have to make room for other people, for new memories." "Second," Kofi added, You have to apologize to Mama. Really apologize. Not just say sorry, explain what you learned. Third, Abena finished, you have to be patient. Mama doesn't trust easy. It took her 5 years after Daddy died before she even talked to men who weren't related to us. You scared her. You have to prove you won't do it again. Jin-woo looked at these 3 children who had been orchestrating his life for weeks and felt something warm spread through his chest. Not quite hope, but close. Okay, he said. Tell me what to do. The triplets smiled. Identical smiles, slightly scary smiles. First, Kofi said, pulling out his phone, we're calling a designer. Your house needs help, professional help. And just like that, Jin-woo's life was in the hands of 3 9-year-olds again. And somehow that felt exactly right. 1 week later, Jin-woo called Adwoa. His heart was beating so hard he could hear it in his ears. She answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? It's Jin-woo. Can you come to my house, please? I want to show you something. Silence on the other end. Then, Jin-woo, I don't think that's a good idea. I know I messed up. But please, just once more. If you still want to leave after, I'll understand. More silence. Then, when? Now? Or whenever you can. I'll wait. I have to drop the triplets at their art class first. I can be there in an hour. I'll be here. Jin-woo spent the hour walking through his house, looking at all the changes. The designer had come 3 days ago. The triplets had supervised. It had been the strangest experience of his life, taking orders from 9-year-olds about his own home. But they had been right about everything. Yuna's photos were still there, but they had been joined by others. Photos of Jin-woo with his father, with Min-jun. Even one from the charity auction, Jin-woo and the triplets, Akosua holding the Kagami no Tama. Someone had taken it without him noticing. The furniture had been rearranged, not completely different, just shifted, opened up, like the house was breathing again. The kitchen had new dishes, mismatched, colorful. Jin-woo had picked them himself at a store, standing there for 40 minutes trying to decide between blue plates and green ones. He bought both. The nursery was empty now. Everything packed carefully into boxes, labeled, stored in the attic. The room was just a room, waiting, ready to become whatever it needed to become. The doorbell rang. Jin-woo answered it. Adwoa stood there looking cautious, guarded, like she was ready to leave at any moment. Hi, Jin-woo said. Hi. Come in, please. She came in slowly, started walking through the house. Jin-woo followed a few steps behind, watching her see the changes. She stopped in the living room, looked at the new arrangement, the new photos mixed with the old ones. Her hand went to her mouth. You changed it, she said quietly. The triplets helped. Well, they mostly gave orders and I followed them. They're very bossy. They're very sure of themselves. Like their mother. Adwoa kept walking, saw the kitchen, the new dishes, the cookbooks Jin-woo had bought, 3 of them, all for beginners. You're really going to learn to cook? She asked. I'm really going to try. I'll probably burn a lot of things first, but I'm trying. She walked upstairs. Jin-woo's heart was pounding. She would see the nursery, would see that he had finally let it go. Adwoa pushed open the door to the empty room. Stood there looking at the blank walls, the clean floor, the afternoon light coming through the window. Where did everything go? She asked. The attic, in boxes. I can look at it when I want to remember. But it doesn't have to be a shrine anymore. It can be something else. Someday. Adwoa turned to look at him. Her eyes were shining. This must have been so hard. It was, but also it wasn't. Once I started, it felt right. Like I should have done it years ago. Jin-woo took a breath. I'm sorry for yelling at you, for making you feel like you were breaking something precious. You weren't. You were showing me that I had been breaking myself for 7 years by refusing to let anything change. Jin-woo, I'm not finished. He stepped closer. I loved Yuna. I'll always love her, but she's gone. And I'm still here. And you're here. And I want to try. I want to have a life that's messy and real and moves forward. With you. If you'll let me. Adwoa looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Small but real. The triplets put you up to this, didn't they? They gave very detailed instructions. Kofi made a checklist, but the feelings are mine. The want in you is all mine. You're still learning, still healing. I know, but I'm trying. Isn't that what your daughter said? Trying is good? She did say that. Adwoa walked closer. Close enough that Jin-woo could smell her perfume, the same scent from all those letters. Okay. Okay? Okay, we can try. But slowly. And if you yell at me about broken dishes again, I'm leaving. And I'm not coming back. Deal. I'll buy dishes specifically for breaking. We'll have breaking dishes and keeping dishes. Adwoa laughed, really laughed. And Jin-woo thought that sound was better than any business deal he had ever closed. The triplets are going to be impossible about this, Adwoa said. They've been impossible since the day I met them. That's true. They stood in the empty nursery that was ready to become something new, and Jin-woo reached for Adwoa's hand. She let him take it. 3 weeks later, Jin-woo followed Adwoa to an orphanage in Mapo district. She didn't know he was there. He stayed back, watching from the entrance. Children swarmed her the moment she walked in. Small ones, big ones, all of them calling her name. Uni, Adwoa, you came back. Did you bring us anything? I brought myself, she said, laughing. Isn't that enough? No, they all shouted, but they were grinning. She sat on the floor with them, helped them with homework, read stories, braided hair, let the smallest ones climb into her lap like she was their mother. Jin-woo watched this woman, who the whole world thought was untouchable, sitting on an orphanage floor in her old jeans, being completely touchable, completely present, completely herself. A nun came to stand next to him. Old kind face. You're here for Adwoa? I'm just watching. She doesn't know I'm here. Ah, the boyfriend. How did you know? She mentioned you last week, said there was someone new, someone trying very hard. Those were her words. Trying very hard. Jin-woo felt warm. How long has she been coming here? Since she moved to Seoul, 8 years now. Every month, same week. Never brings cameras, never tells anyone. Just comes and sits with the children who don't have anyone else. Why? The nun looked at him with gentle eyes. Because she was one of them. Adwoa grew up in an orphanage in Togo. No parents, no family. Just herself and God and the nuns who raised her. She knows what it means to be alone. So she makes sure these children know they're not. Jin-woo's whole understanding of Adwoa shifted. This woman who walked runways for the most expensive designers in the world, who had her face on magazines, who seemed to have everything. She had started with nothing, with less than nothing. A little girl tugged on Adwoa's sleeve. Honey, do you have a family now? I have 3 children, Adwoa said, smiling. Triplets. They're 9. Are you married? No, sweet one. Their father is in heaven. Are you lonely? Adwoa paused, touched the girl's cheek. Sometimes. But less than I used to be. There's someone new, someone who's learning how to be happy again, like me. Is he nice? He's trying very hard to be. And trying is important. Can we meet him? Maybe someday, if he keeps trying. Jin-woo backed away before Adwoa could see him, went outside, sat on a bench and looked at the sky and felt something settle into place inside him. When Adwoa came out an hour later, he was still there. She stopped when she saw him. "How long have you been here?" "Long enough. The nun told me about your childhood, about why you come here. I was going to tell you eventually. You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to tell me." "I want to." Adwoa sat next to him on the bench. "I want you to know the real me, not the magazine version. The person who came from nothing and still doesn't quite believe she deserves everything she has. You deserve all of it, and more." They sat together in the afternoon sun, and Adwoa told him her story. The orphanage in Lom, the nuns who raised her, the modeling scout who saw her when she was 17, moving to Paris alone, meeting Kwame at a shoot in Ghana, falling in love, the pregnancy, the accident, the choice to keep living for the 3 babies who needed her. Jin-woo listened like it was the most important thing he had ever heard, because it was. When she finished, he said, "You're the bravest person I've ever met." "I'm not brave, I'm just still here." That's what brave means. 2 weeks after that, Jin-woo told the triplets he needed their help with something important. They met him at a jewelry store in Gangnam. The owner was expecting them, had set aside the private room. "We're ring shopping," Jin-woo announced. All 3 triplets started screaming, right there in the fancy store. The owner smiled like this happened all the time. "You're going to propose to Mama?" Akosua asked, bouncing. "If you 3 help me pick the right ring, I have no idea what I'm doing." "We know exactly what to do," Kofi said confidently. They spent an hour looking at rings. The jeweler brought out tray after tray. Diamond rings, emerald rings, sapphire rings, simple bands, complicated settings. "Too flashy," Akosua said to a big diamond. "Mama doesn't like showing off." "Too plain," Kofi said to a simple band. "This is important. It should look important." "Wrong color," Abina said to a gold ring. "Mama only wears platinum and silver. Gold makes her skin itch." Jin-woo watched these 9-year-olds evaluate rings with the seriousness of people buying a house. He had negotiated billion-won contracts with less intensity. Finally, the jeweler brought out one more tray. Simple platinum band, single diamond, not too big, not too small. Elegant without trying too hard. All 3 triplets leaned forward at the same time. "That one," they said together. Jin-woo looked at it, picked it up. It was perfect. It looked like Adwoa. Beautiful because of what it was, not because of what it cost. "We'll take it," he said. While the jeweler went to size it, Jin-woo sat with the triplets in the private room. "I need to tell you 3 something," he said seriously. "I'm not trying to replace your father. I can't. He was your father. He loved your mother enough to die for her. That's extraordinary. I'll never be him." "We know," Akosua said gently. "We're not looking for a copy of Daddy. We're looking for someone new, someone who's ours." "Can you handle us?" Kofi asked. 3 kids who are smarter than you sometimes? Who will argue with you and test you and probably make you crazy?" Jin-woo laughed. "You've been making me crazy since the day we met. I think I can handle it." "Good," Abena said, satisfied. "Because we already decided we like you. But if you hurt Mama, we'll make your life very difficult." "I believe you." "We're serious," Kofi added. "We have resources. We know people." "You're 9. "Exactly. No one suspects 9-year-olds. Jin-woo looked at these 3 children who had orchestrated his entire relationship with their mother, who had written him letters and given him gifts and pushed him to change his life, and felt something huge and warm fill his chest. Love. He loved these kids, already, completely. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for the letters, for not giving up on me, for deciding I was worth the effort." "You are worth it," Akosua said. "You just needed help seeing it." The jeweler came back with the ring in a small box, perfect size, ready to go. "Now we need to plan the proposal," Abena said. "I was thinking I'd just take her to dinner and ask her." All three triplets looked at him with identical expressions of disappointment. "That's so boring," Kofi said. "Mama deserves better than boring," Akosua added. "Where's her biggest show?" Abena asked. "Seoul Fashion Week, the finale, next month." The triplets looked at each other, grinned. "We know exactly what you're going to do," Kofi said. And just like that, Jin-woo's proposal was being planned by 3 9-year-olds. Again, the night of the fashion show, Dongdaemun Design Plaza was packed. Designers from everywhere. Models. Photographers. People who decided what was important in fashion. The triplets sat in the front row wearing outfits they had spent 2 weeks planning. Kofi in a black suit with a silver pocket square. Abena in deep blue with her hair in twists. Akosua in purple, her favorite color, with shoes that sparkled. Next to them sat Jin-woo's father, who had recovered fully and was grinning like he had won something. Minjin was there too, with his phone ready to record everything. Jin-woo was backstage, wearing a suit the triplets had approved. His heart was beating so hard he felt dizzy. "You don't have to do this," Minjun said. "We can still do the restaurant plan." "The triplets will never forgive me." "That's true. Those kids are scary when they're disappointed." The show started. Model after model walking the runway. Beautiful clothes. Perfect lighting. Music that made everything feel important. Then Adwoa walked out for the finale. She was wearing silver, something that looked like liquid metal, something that caught every light and turned her into something beyond human. She walked the runway like she owned it, like she had built it herself. The crowd was on their feet before she even reached the end. She got to the end of the runway, started to turn, stopped, because Jin-woo was walking out from backstage. The music changed, got softer. The crowd gasped. Adwoa's hand went to her mouth. Jin-woo walked to her and got down on one knee right there on the runway in front of thousands of people. "Adwoa asantewa boateng," he said, and his voice was shaking but clear. "I crashed into you on a running path and you looked at me like I was being ridiculous. You were right. I was ridiculous. I had been ridiculous for 7 years, stuck in the past, afraid of everything, half alive. Then you happened. You and 3 children who decided I needed fixing whether I wanted it or not. You taught me that grief doesn't have to be a museum, that love doesn't replace love, it just adds to it, that trying is better than hiding. I'm still learning, still healing. I can't cook. I'm terrible at sports. I'll probably never be as brave as you are, but I show up. I'll keep showing up. For you. For Akosua, Abena, and Kofi. For whatever family we can build together. Will you marry me?" The entire venue was silent, waiting. Adwoa looked at this man kneeling on a runway in front of the whole fashion world, choosing to be vulnerable instead of safe, and she started crying. Real tears, makeup running. She didn't care. She looked at her triplets in the front row. All 3 of them were crying too, holding each other, grinning through their tears. She looked back at Jin-woo, who was holding a ring box and looking terrified and hopeful at the same time. "Yes," she said. "Obviously, yes." Jin-woo stood up, hands shaking, and slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Because of course it did. The triplets had made sure. He kissed her. Nothing too much, just enough, just right. The venue exploded. Confetti fell from the ceiling, gold and silver, like two different kinds of grief becoming something new. Like celebration. Like joy. The triplets jumped the barrier and ran onto the runway. Security tried to stop them, but they were too fast. They crashed into Jin-woo and Adwoa in a group hug that nearly knocked everyone over. "We did it," Kofi yelled. "We got you a husband," Abena shouted at her mother. "And we got a dad," Akosua added, looking at Jin-woo. "You're officially our dad now. No takebacks." Jin-woo was laughing and crying at the same time, holding all four of them, and he thought about his old dream. Running toward Yuna and never arriving. He hadn't had that dream in 2 months. Now when he dreamed, it was different. A house full of noise, 3 children arguing about homework, Adwoa at the table with her coffee, and him not running toward anything. Just there, present, home. In a hospital room across the city, the chairman watched the proposal on his tablet, watched his son smile wider than he had in 7 years, watched him hold a woman and 3 children like they were his whole world. He set the tablet down gently, closed his eyes, smiled. "He's going to be okay," he whispered. "Finally, he's going to be happy." 6 months later, they all lived in a new house. Not Jin-woo's museum, not Adwoa's apartment, something they picked together. Modern but warm. Space for everyone. The triplets had their own rooms, but still slept in Akosa's most nights. Some habits were too good to break. Sunday morning, Adwoa woke up to voices downstairs. Jin-woo attempting to make pancakes, the triplets helping, which meant mostly making things worse. Laughter. The smell of something burning. She went downstairs in one of Jin-woo's shirts to find her husband and her children covered in flour, the kitchen a disaster, and pancakes that were almost edible. "Mama!" Abena saw her first. "Look, Daddy only burned 3 this time." Daddy. The words still made Jin-woo's eyes get shiny every time they said it. "That's progress," Adwoa said, kissing the top of Abena's head. "Very slow progress," Kofi muttered. They sat at the table, all 5 of them. Jin-woo reached for Adwoa's hand. She took it. Across the table, the triplets looked at each other with identical, satisfied expressions. "Stop looking so smug," Adwoa told them. "We earned it," Kofi said. "This was months of planning." "We're excellent at fixing people," Abena added. "Should we start a business?" Akosua wondered. "Absolutely not," Jin-woo and Adwoa said together. The triplets just grinned. The Kagami no Tama sat on the windowsill where morning light found it, and everyone in the house slept peacefully now, even the ones who used to run from their dreams, even the ones who used to cry through walls, even the ones who used to carry everything alone. They were all home now, all together, all trying. And trying, as a very wise 9-year-old once said, was very good indeed.